Yassenn again for part 3. This video will explain the middle of the distilling puzzle. Now that you already know how to start and end a distilling session, these crucial steps will allow you to add a few more CCs on your chain. Once a player understands puzzle strategy and piece interaction, the only limitations are speed and coordination. As we move into CC 9 to 12s, these limitations become ever more important. Unfortunately, at this point of the tutorial, some players will become hampered by these aspects of the puzzle. The whole mid-game is about identifying and removing problematic pieces. What is a problematic piece? Simply put, a problematic piece is any brown that is too high on the board and any black that is too low on the board. Why are these pieces problematic? This has to do with how pieces move through whites. In this picture here, I have identified the problematic pieces on the board. The red ones will be extremely problematic, whereas the orange ones could become problematic, but aren't necessarily at the moment. To understand how these pieces are problematic, I've edited out all the non-problematic pieces. And if you try to visualize, this brown could only be dragged up into this slot, which is then to get it stuck against the top of the board. The same is true with any of these other red browns, and likewise the same is true with the blacks. They can only be dragged down to the very bottom, where they will get stuck against the edge of the board. The objective when dealing with problematic pieces is to move them vertically towards the center of the board. In this video, I will explain 3 methods of vertically moving problematic pieces. Sort is the most basic of these methods. The idea of sort is to take everything that you have on the left side of the puzzle and try to connect it all together. And then I generally click on a brown, I drag it all the way down to the bottom and try to fill in all these blacks. I do this with every single brown that I can find, and I try to move every single black out of the bottom. What this accomplishes, eventually you get all the browns down the bottom and all the blacks up at the top, which gives it so you have no problematic pieces. While sort is a simple and straightforward method that is good for new distillers, it is also the slowest method. In addition, because sort requires a large number of pieces to work with, it is not feasible to get CC12 using only this method. Method 2 is pairs. Pairs involves using one black and one brown to move each other around the board. Earlier, we talked about needing to move the problematic pieces vertically to the center of the board. However, pairs will generally need to move both vertically and horizontally to find the right position. To perform a vertical version of pairs where we move a brown down, we're going to start by getting a black up next to it, drag the black through, and then drag the black back down so that it lines up with the brown again. Then you're just going to repeat it by dragging the black up again and down around to the start. And you just keep repeating the same motion until you reach your desired height on the board. This method can also be used to drag a black up off the bottom of the ground. And instead of clicking on the black, you use the brown, drag it through the black, and line it up again, drag it back through. Just keep repeating this until, again, you're high enough on the board. To start moving these pieces horizontally, you want to start with your leftmost piece, drag it through your black or your brown, and then drag your piece one more, then go back to your original piece, drag it through the white, through this one, and through another white. So you basically keep repeating this down, up, 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 down, and slide that one in there. This one, even though the brown is the one we're starting with, it's basically the same thing. Just drag that through and go left, front, down, up, 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 and finish it off. Pairs is a very versatile method. With it, pieces can be moved from one corner of the board to the opposite, provided you have enough space. A drawback, however, is that we are limited to 2 pieces at a time. Depending on the board spawn, we might have many problematic pieces to move, and only one easy piece to move them with. Which brings us to our third method. Rows is my most common way of dealing with problematic pieces. There's 2 ways to perform rows. Both of them start off the same. The first thing you want to do is take your problematic pieces, which in this case is these 2 blacks, and you want to make a row with them, like this. Your rows will always go from the bottom corner to the opposite side, or from the top corner to the opposite side. Then we want to take an easy piece, which in this case is a brown, and we want to put it out at the very front of our row. Both methods start by taking your easy piece and dragging it through your row of problematic pieces. The first method I'm going to go through. To proceed from here, we need to take the black and move it down a slot, and then we take this brown, move it up into the space we just created, down through that black that we moved, and then pull it back around to the front, and we'll go ahead and drag it through as well for now. The second method involves going around the back. So we take our brown, we go through the back until it lines up with our first piece in the row. We drag it through that piece and up one into the front. We drag this one back down, and now we can drag it through again. You can keep repeating these using either method until your pieces are high enough to be dragged into your slots. The method for doing this with your brown problematic pieces is exactly the same, but the board's a little flipped or reversed, so I'll go through the exact movements as well. I'm going to start by making a row out of these, which this one's a bit more difficult. This is good enough. A shortcut you can use during your rows making is that, normally you would have to go through, drag a brown up so we could get the black back to the front. But as a shortcut, if we just go in one, we already have a brown that is up above here. So we can go up through the brown and back to the start already. I'll go through method 1 with brown problematic pieces. We drag black all the way through, pull our first brown up one slot, drag our black down into that slot, through the brown, and then back up to the front. Now for the second method, drag it through all the browns, pull it around the back till it lines up with our first piece in the row, drag it through that piece, and then out into the front of the row, pull the brown back through into the slot, and then the black all the way through all these. Now one thing to note is that when you do this, you see how this first piece could be dragged up into these already, but it's actually better if we make the lowest piece on the board line up with this slot, so we'd want to do one more of these so that these could be filled in, and then this one is in the middle, which leaves the outer slots for the next pieces that spawn, so we don't have to take those as far. You're now ready to go off and start getting CC9s or possibly even CC12s. Before you go, here are a few tips for you to remember. The number one rule about problematic pieces is to never leave a problematic piece behind. Always remember to deal with them and keep your board clean. Also, the concepts of midgame can be used from the start of the puzzle. However, for the sake of giving new distillers a guideline, I'm going to say that we should fill in at least 2 rows with the strategies from previous videos before trying out these new methods. Lastly, try to always leave one easy piece in each corner. This will allow you to easily deal with any problematic pieces that may spawn.